Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
So our guests today are Texas Longhorn breeders from Wisconsin. So they're here in the nice cold Midwest with Jamie and I. They've been renovating their 1940s farmhouse themselves. She is obsessed with their chickens. He is a taxidermist. They sell Texas Longhorn beef as well as salsa, pickles, apples, pies, and other baked goods. And she just started gardening during the quarantine with the pandemic.
Should we bring her in?
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome, Erin and Courtney Fiegl. It's good to have you on today.
Hi.
Hi.
How are things in Wisconsin?
Cold,
You know,
but good.
Can you show everybody your shirt, Courtney, so they can see your ranch name? One of my favorite designs by far. I love the hoodie that you promote.
Thank you.
our first question is when did you all start raising Longhorns?
We brought our first two home in April of 2019, I think.
Yeah, it's February or April. I thought it was February, but
You could
who's to say? So just a couple of years ago.
Have you always lived on a
Yeah.
farm?
I have, yeah. Yeah, I grew up dairy farm, and then we got beef cattle as well. But I got ownership in the farm and the LLC, and I just wanted to do something, kind of found a way, an outlet of not having to play the commodities game. So we kind of just stumbled into these Longhorns, but we fell in love pretty quick after we got into them.
So there's not many Longhorns in Wisconsin. Where did you see, or what made you get Longhorns?
Yeah, no, there's not. There's actually a small, he was kind of a breeder, like 10 miles from us, and I'm a taxidermist professionally. So I kind of went out on a limb and found, I don't even really realize how it all started, but I researched Longhorn mounts one day, and I kind of saw what some of the people were getting for the prices on some of them. I thought, really, I was almost taken back. Like, I don't think that's right. But there was a guy down the road 10 miles from us that had a small herd, and I didn't know him. I periodically drive by that place and had seen them, and I always thought they were cool. So I stopped in there on a limb one day and just asked him, what he did with them, and if he'd ever be interested in selling me just a head and cape, on his butcher animals. And he didn't do anything with them other than the butchering part of things on his steers. So he was more than willing to let me have the head and cape on some of his bigger steers. And then I mounted a couple of them, sold them right away. And from there, we got into looking through the registered stock and how, a lot of the breeders, and finding the niche community that there is out there in that. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started for us, So we kind of mapped out a game plan of how to utilize every corner of them. A lot of people, the serious breeders, the ropers, they just sell them off. Well, we thought about, beef program and then being able to utilize the pretty hides and the skulls and creating a market for them too. So that's how we started into it. But no, there's not a lot of other Longhorns around this area. So.
Courtney, did you grow up on a farm as well?
I actually grew up in Waunakee. It's like a suburb of Madison.
Okay.
So I was not a country girl.
We turned a city girl into a country girl.
You'd never be able to tell, that's for sure.
Oh, good.
No, I won't comment further.
At what point did you get the store? How long have you had the store?
2 years. Well, we've only been open, the store has actually only been open a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spring or winter of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
It took us a good year to get the store up and running and to have beef available to sell.
So we're going to recommend that all of our listeners go and follow your social media accounts. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about your branding, because we think that you do a really great job at that. It's pretty impressive how, you guys don't let any part of the Longhorn go to waste and really have, maximized on everything. So at what point in this process did you realize that you needed to create a strong brand?
Right from the beginning, when we started talking about opening our own business, the first thing I went to was to create a logo, which our first logo was not that great.
Oh, I still like it.
It wasn't a good quality. It was kind of pixelated. So we ended up changing it, but it started with the logo and then just deciding what type of things we're going to sell, how it's going to look, what our packaging is going to look like. My background is interior design, so I kind of knew right away like how I wanted things to look, and that's kind of important to me. Not so much him, but
So tell us a little bit more when you talk about packaging and that sort of stuff. I'm assuming you had to go through some different regulations with the beef and just with some of the other produce you're selling. Talk us through, for breeders that haven't ever done that, talk us through a little bit that whole process.
the butcher did. I mean, he sends us options.
Well, we sent him the template, like our logo, and you sent him an email on what you wanted the packaging to look like, and then he sent us back over his proof before we went and okayed it, and then he puts all that on our each individual cuts and stuff like that. And as far as getting that part of it going, it wasn't hard at all. We do have to go through obviously a state licensed, inspected, USDA inspected facility, and the inspector is on site when the animal is killed and processed. So we're licensed to sell it back to the consumer at that point. We just pick our beef up direct from the butcher after it's frozen, and then we have our shop set up, and we have a nice big freezer in there, and we got a license through this could be different throughout the country and state to state, county to county, but in our county and state, we just had to get licensed through our county to sell our beef. And they just show up, look at your freezer and your space, and they give you $75, and away you go. It wasn't hard at all. As far as that goes.
In designing the packaging, he kind of gave us 3 different options. There's a super expensive custom option, and then middle of the road, and then your cheapest option. We kind of went in the middle.
I think it only cost us, was it like $100 one-time fee?
No, it was less than that, I think.
Yeah, it was less than $100 a one-time fee.
So as much as I wanted to do the custom and have it exactly how I envisioned it, it was just going to cost too much. And as you guys know, the profit margin in farming is quite low. So it's a balance of choosing.
Yeah, we get you got to sell high enough to make it worth your while. The processors, the beef cutters, they get their chunk, and you got to price yourself where it justifies your time and your feed and all that. But we feel like we're priced right at where we can justify it as far as what we make and what the processor takes on his cut and stuff like that. But it's generally, we like selling by the quarter, but we do sell by the pound too, by the cut. Some people just show up and want to buy a steak, and that's fine. But it's definitely nicer to move quarters or halves, because it's one chunk and away you go. And it's not as much time consuming in marketing on her part.
So how important has the Longhorn imagery and Longhorn, stressing that it's Longhorn been in building your brand and kind of differentiating yourself from maybe that other beef breeder down the road or that sort of stuff?
It has been important. There are a ton of farms in our area. Obviously, we're in a rural area, and they all sell Angus or Holstein beef, a few other breeds, but we pretty much are the only Longhorn beef farm in the area. So it was important to stress that aspect because of the nutritious value of Longhorn beef, which you all know. So that kind of sets us apart from everybody else.
And did you, so because Longhorns are so different and easy to differentiate, did that play a role in your decision making with some of the other produce and such that you brought in as well? Do you try to be different in those areas too?
Yeah. I mean, we don't do any like produce yet. Like I have a small garden, but that and chickens, but we'd like to do some meat birds as well eventually, if I can talk him into it.
And I saw one day where there was like a coffee truck that you collaborated with and just some different things like that. I'm assuming to try to increase foot traffic.
Yeah, we love the coffee truck. Collaborating with smaller businesses. We'd like to collaborate more. I have big ideas about like a small vendors maybe over the summer, kind of congregating at our farm, stuff like that to bring the people here because we are out quite a ways.
How far, when you say quite a ways, kind of put that into perspective for some of our listeners that aren't in the Midwest. How far are you from the main road or the town? Or
we're 20 minutes away from Sauk City,
which is the biggest, closest town.
Which is the closest town.
And then Madison being our state capital, we're like 45 minutes from there. So it's not terrible.
But it is a drive. So we kind of want to make our farm a destination where people don't mind driving all the way out here to come get their beef.
So let's switch. Go ahead.
So they love looking at the cows. Everyone wants to see a Texas Longhorn. That in Wisconsin, they don't see them.
So I guess that brings up a question. Are the Longhorns, is the main pasture kind of right behind the store or?
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about social media. So can you elaborate on what role social media has played in building your brand?
It's been essential to everything. As much as I hate to admit it, like it's a love-hate relationship with social media because you go on there and you see all of these amazing farms and you have to stand out. And but we sell all of our products on there and it's free advertising, free marketing, so it's really important. We use it to sell everything, our mounts and our skulls as well, and our merchandise.
Do you feel like did you do anything special to learn how to use it correctly, or did you have a pretty good knowledge going into it?
It was definitely a learning curve going into it. Like if you go back to my like very first posts, the images aren't of good quality and it's kind of fun to look at how far we've come. But yeah, I definitely didn't start out knowing what I was doing at all. I was just kind of winging it, but then you catch on quickly what works.
I think one thing that didn't that one lady tell you, you kind of Facebook stalked other people that had created pretty big followings for themselves already. And I think the one lady told you, make sure you have a good following before you try to sell anything.
Yeah.
good number of people that are following your page or looking at your post before you try to go selling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast.
So you look a lot at the analytics and that side of things to kind of justify when the right time to add new products is and everything.
Yeah, now I do. I never used to pay attention to those in the beginning, but now it's kind of fun to, and it's real easy on Instagram. It's that bottom insight button on each post. If you click that, it will tell you how many people saved it, how many people shared it, liked it, stuff like that. So you can take a look at which posts were more successful and do more of those.
What are some of the other challenges that you've come across since within the last 2 years, as far as your brand, like creating the store, getting your product out there?
I would say the costs of like wanting it to look a certain way and look good, but you can't go overboard with that or else your profit margins are close to nothing. So it's been a balance of making things look good, but not spending too much money doing it.
What would you say would be the thing that's gotten you the most attention on Instagram or social media in general? Like,
Probably, well, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. Your taxidermy and mounts do really well. People seem to really love those. I like to talk about my chickens a lot. So it's a lot of different things, not just cows. Because that gets kind of repetitive. So you got to talk about other things too.
I just like looking at cows.
He's just here for the cows. But
Well, you've done, I mean, lately, at least from what I've noticed, you've done a great job of collaborating with other accounts too. So you'll share other accounts you like, maybe about chickens or, just farm. And you also do a great job of keeping up with the trends. I forget what the trend was called, but it's basically like the other girls in winter versus me.
oh yeah.
That one was great. So I think that's important too, to, interact with other people, be social on social media.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about building a community, bouncing ideas off of each other and working together.
So you have eggs, which your chickens lay some of the prettiest eggs I think I've ever seen.
Thank you.
You have chickens, you have Longhorns. What else do you have? What other items do you sell in your store?
We've done pickles, and I'd like to do more canned goods. Hopefully this summer we'll see how much my garden produces and if I can do some of that.
Just like merchant, like shirts and sweatshirts and hats and stuff like that, coffee mugs, which really we don't make much at all on those,
right.
But it's cool to get your brand out there and have people wearing your stuff,
Right. It's another way of free marketing.
People hopefully see our sweatshirts and then associate with that with maybe buying some beef down the road or something like that.
So what other things about your journey have we not asked that could maybe be helpful to other people?
I mean, as far as the Longhorn breeding aspect of things, there's everyone on here is probably smarter than we are, but don't buy what you can afford, and we got so addicted into that, and I didn't know we were going to get so drawn into the actual breeding of the stock, and we're strictly trying to AI everything and building our genetics. But if people are going to get into registered stock, try to do it right, I guess. Don't buy a 60-inch cow if you're trying to play the registered game. If you buy what you can afford and don't buy a lot of them at first. Try to ease yourself into them a little bit. But as far as what she does with the marketing,
as far as social media goes, I would say just to get on there and post, and don't be afraid of what everyone else is gonna think.
Yeah,
Sometimes I post things and it's like crickets, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have posted that. But I mean, just don't be afraid. Just
yeah. Sometimes she posts things like that comment you were talking about. I think was the winter one, the real quick winter. Well, I saw that one and I'm like, oh boy, no, you know.
don't be afraid to embarrass your husband on
yeah.
social media.
So where do you see yourself in the store and your breeding program, your beef program, let's say 5 years out? What are your goals?
We have so many ideas. We'd like to, sorry, my children are loud. Our children are loud. We'd like to do more like dinners at the farm and to bring people out, make it a destination to come out and buy beef, and pumpkin patches, tours.
Yeah, we'd like to do some breed promoting to other people that maybe don't want to play the commodities game too, and don't have a 1,000-acre farm, that they still want, maybe they got a little hobby farm, maybe they got 10-15 acres. Well, you can have a couple nice cows on 10 or 15 acres and not maybe get the rec tax. You can get the ag tax bracket, and save yourself some taxes, and maybe have some fun with it. And maybe you'll end up breeding a $10,000 cow or $20,000 cow, if you do it right. I don't know, we want to have some nights where we put out, some Facebook posts and maybe get some local people out here that are interested in maybe trying to get into Longhorns like we did. I don't know, some stuff like that, maybe to try to keep pushing the breed and create more markets for our cattle too.
What were some of your steps when you were trying to collaborate with some of the other businesses? Like what were your first steps? Were they warm? Were they welcoming to you collaborating with them? Like the coffee shop, for example?
Yeah, most people are excited about it because they found that works for them as well. So I shot the coffee truck a message on Instagram, and she's like, sure, yeah, I'll come. She squeezed us into her schedule. So, I mean, most people are willing to collaborate with you. You just don't be afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm. Are there others that you have lined up that in the spring that you're ready to collaborate with?
I'd like to bring some local goods into our little store. Just like coffees and canned goods and stuff like that. And just offer a consignment for them.
All right, so let's go through. We'll ask you a few questions just so the folks listening can go out and find you. So where is your store located?
It's out in the boondocks. It's technically a plain address, but it's close to Sauk City.
Okay. And tell us how all of the followers and people on social media can find you. Throw out your handles and your URL and all of that sort of stuff.
Yes. So Facebook and Instagram is the same handle. It's at Green Pastures Cattle. Our website is greenpasturescattleco.com. And yeah, I think that's it.
And
TikTok is the same handle too. Sorry, Green Pastures Cattle.
And how's TikTok going for you, for breeders who might be writing it off as kind of a fluke or not appropriate?
I honestly don't use that so much. I use TikTok to create a video and then I post it to Instagram. So I don't ever kind of worry about growing the TikTok account, but it's fun to make videos for, and videos really get a lot of views and will lead to follows to your page. So people like videos.
And do you all sell your beef or your eggs or anything outside of your store? Like, is there anywhere closer to Madison or where folks can find you?
No, we've been lucky enough to sell all of our products where we don't really need to involve any other stores or farmers markets or anything.
Maybe if we get, bigger and more animals through the future, there might be some of that we would consider. But I mean, I think we processed 8 animals last year, and I think we're processing 9 or 10 this year. So I mean, we don't have a problem getting rid of that amount. So I haven't had a need to find any other outlets yet.
And so once a year, there's a registered Texas Longhorn sale in Wisconsin, hosted by the GNTLA. How far are you from where that sale is at if folks want to come and kind of see your store setup and everything?
2.5 hours.
Okay, that's what I thought.
From Dan Huntington's, we're about 2.5 hours. Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions that we had. Do you have anything you want to add or any other advice you want to cover?
Actually, there is one thing I should probably tell everyone where this logo came from is at Wild Feather Farm, and she does an amazing job. She created our logo.
Well, thank you guys very much for taking time out of your cold morning to join us.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview. It was fun.
Yeah.